Let's move on to our portion of the meeting where we have an educational session. And today the education is The Art of Effective Evaluation by Laverne Wojciechowski. Laverne has been a Toastmaster for 21 years. She's been working at CNL, which used to be Atomic Energy of Canada Limited in Pinawa, for 32 years and currently works as a quality assurance specialist and section head. In her spare time, she likes to garden, grow giant pumpkins. She's currently the program quality director. There was a Toastmasters club in her workplace since 1980. She's always wondered what it was about. It wasn't until about 10 years after joining ACL that she went to her first meeting. Her section head, a member, invited her to the meeting, so she decided to join after 3 months. Table topics really piqued her interest, and table topics liberated her and gave her the confidence and self-assurance to go out there and initiate conversations. She has been a club president, secretary, VP of membership, public relations, VP education, the club level. She's been area director, division director, area governor, mentor, club mentor, education session coordinator, judge coordinator, Sunshine Club, contest coordinator, public relations, and club growth. She's also volunteered at Toastmasters International Convention in Calgary in 2008 and Orlando in 2012 and Vegas in 2015. She received her first DTM award in 2012 and her second in 2016. Laverne has given many evaluations over her Toastmasters career and has competed at the district level in evaluation contests. She is thrilled to be here today. Toastmasters has given her so much, and now she's giving back to helping others discover the magic of Toastmasters, where leaders are made. Please help me welcome Laverne Wojciechowski.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. It's great to see so many faces here. Well, I don't see all of your faces. I see that there's 45 participants. That's awesome. That's the biggest online crowd that I've had to speak to. So great, and congratulations for everyone showing up today. The topic, the art of effective evaluation. In Toastmasters, we're very unique in that we do evaluations as volunteers to help the members in our clubs. And it's always a challenge for some of the newer members and sometimes some of the other members to do an effective evaluation. So today I'm going to be talking about an effective evaluation, and we're going to do a little bit of a workshop later on in the meeting where Lorette Greenlay will be presenting a speech. We will do an evaluation on it and then have a little bit of a round table on how we should evaluate and what we can do and how we can help Lorette with her speech. So effective evaluation benefits everyone. It benefits the evaluator because they learn how to do an effective evaluation and learn what to look for in different speeches. It benefits the speaker because they get valuable feedback to help improve their speeches. And it benefits the club because when somebody does a good evaluation, the club sees what good looks like, and then they can work on their skills to make the evaluations better for themselves. So today what I'm hoping to achieve is to help us recognize the purpose and value of an effective speech evaluation. I want us to discover the ways that we can improve our evaluation skills, both individually and as a club. And I want to stimulate some group discussion on the subject of the vital concerns of our club and to each of us in terms of evaluations. So why do people want to learn to speak? Well, in general, they want to gain knowledge skills. They want to meet a specific need. They want to gain material rewards. They want to earn credit towards recognition. They gain pleasure from speaking. In some cases, some people come to learn to speak. Some like speaking in front of crowds and want to learn how to do it better. It builds self-esteem when you learn to speak in front of a crowd or a different audience, and it helps build confidence or self-confidence for people, because once they're up there speaking and they get some feedback and they learn how to do it a little bit better, it's just a continuous chain that helps them get better and better and builds their self-confidence. And people also want to learn to speak to win acceptance and esteem from others. So how do we improve speakers? Well, it's a continuous cycle. You have certain behaviors that you exhibit when you give a speech. You get some feedback from an evaluator that does an evaluation. You go back and you give another speech where you exhibit behaviors, and you get feedback again from an evaluator, and then go back, do another speech, exhibit behaviors, and the process just keeps going on and on and on. And it's a cycle of continuous improvement. So every time you're evaluated, there's something that you learn that you can do better, and you take it on to the next speech project that you have. So the evaluator actually has 3 roles. The evaluator is a motivator. They want their speakers to do well, and they encourage them with the type of evaluation that they give. They also act as a facilitator, help the speaker learn how to improve. And they are also a counselor. They can be a person that the speech writer can go to and actually counsel with ahead of time before the speech is given. So if somebody wants to learn or wants help with a certain aspect of their speech, whether it's the way the speech is written or it's the gestures they're using when they're talking, they can counsel the evaluator ahead of time to look for those. So how does self-esteem help us become better speakers? Well, self-esteem fuels personal growth. If you're feeling good about yourself, you're going to want to improve. The feedback reinforces this personal growth, because the more feedback you get, and if you get quality feedback, it'll reinforce your personal growth as a speaker. And the fact that you're growing and achieving something helps you nourish your self-esteem. So the more personal growth that you have will nourish your self-esteem. And the more self-esteem that you get will generate more growth. So it's a continuous cycle once you get that self-esteem cycle working for you. So how do we nourish this self-esteem when you evaluate? Well, the first thing is you want to be genuine when you're talking or giving your evaluation to the speaker. You want to show that you have interest in the speech they're giving and that you're interested in being an evaluator. So be genuine when you're giving your evaluation. Also, recognize the strengths of the speaker. Now, not every speech is going to be a perfect speech, and we're always trying to improve, but there's always something good about the speech, or there's always something that the speaker does well, and that should be recognized. You also want to recognize improvement. So if you've seen a speech from a couple of months ago and you're seeing a speech now, say that, oh, look at that, you're using gestures much more effectively in your speeches now. Or if you see improvement in some other aspect of speaking, recognize that improvement and let the speaker know that you see it. Also, create a climate for motivation. Always be positive, look for the good things. If you're being positive and not negative, you'll create that climate for motivation. You also want to avoid value judgments. So if a speaker gives a speech on a topic that you're not particularly interested in or you don't agree with, you have to put that aside and evaluate what you actually see in front of you. You can't place value judgments on the topic or the speaker. You have to be neutral on the subject. And you also want to provide positive direction. So when you're giving an evaluation, you don't want to speak on things for improvement in the negative. You should always look to word things in the positive direction. Now, here I want you to sit and think for a couple of minutes. What does your club do well when they're evaluating? I want you to look at the 10 different aspects of a club that I have listed on the screen, and there's numbers 1 to 5 listed there. So when you look at these things, look at it in terms of your club. Does your club place emphasis on evaluations? Do you have good standards for evaluating? Do people take on the responsibility seriously when they evaluate? Does your club consider it to have benefits when they evaluate? Do the evaluations conform to a particular standard? Do people use a particular method to evaluate? What consideration is given when they're evaluating? And what's the process for evaluating? Are the speakers prepared when they come to get their evaluations? And are the speakers accepted? So I want you to think about this for about a minute. I'll give you a minute here to pick maybe the top 3 areas that you think your club or clubs need to work on in terms of evaluation. So if you think anything is a 1 that needs improvement, as opposed to a 5 that does it very well, I want you to mark down 1 or 2 of these that you can take back with you that you think needs work in your club. So I'll give you a little while here to think about that. Okay, so I'm going to open it up here. Does anybody want to share what they think their clubs could use improvement on in terms of evaluations in the club?
This is Janet.
Okay.
My one club, a small club, we need to teach them more of the process and how to give positive evaluations. I don't mean not giving them a point of suggestion, but be more positive, have the focus on positive as instead of the negative. Don't overwhelm people with the negative.
Good. Anybody else want to share?
Laverne, I'll go.
Okay, Tekla, go.
Yeah. So one of the things is standards that we need to improve on, and I'm going over the pathways. The second speech, when you level 1, where you do the speech, get evaluated, do another speech, get evaluated, and then the evaluation portion. Pathways has great information, and I'm hoping to build to that standard so I can become a better evaluator.
Awesome. Thank you, Tekla. I have time for one more share. Does anybody else want to share? Okay, hearing none, we're going to move on. So how do we build a positive club climate for evaluation? Well, what we need to do is emphasize quality evaluations. So we have to tell people or show people what good looks like. We have to help our members become better acquainted with the evaluation process. So like Tekla mentioned, we're in a new educational system, and we need to help them understand how to do these evaluations and how to present them at the club meetings. Another thing we can do is assign evaluators when we're assigning speakers. So I know a lot of the clubs I belong to, at the end of the meeting, we look to fill the agenda and we assign the speakers. And then in one particular club, I know the VPE asks who wants to evaluate the speaker, because those are the 2 important roles we try to get set up first. And then if somebody volunteers, they might even say, oh, well, you evaluated them last time. Are you sure you want to do it again? So we try to mix it up a little bit so that everybody gets a chance to evaluate everybody else. We also encourage dialogue between the speakers and the evaluators. Just because you come to a meeting and you evaluate doesn't mean it's only at the meeting that you have to have interaction between the speakers and the evaluators. You can actually speak to one another ahead of the meeting. We also should be evaluating the evaluators. So if you have a general evaluator, they should be evaluating the evaluators to see how well they did during the meeting. Because if the evaluator gives the same type of evaluation or has the same types of things that needs to be improved in the evaluations, how are they going to improve if nobody evaluates them? And we should encourage group evaluations. I know every once in a while, if we don't have enough people at a meeting, we do a roundtable evaluation to get an idea of what other people thought in the meeting. Because remember, when the evaluator goes up to evaluate a speaker, That's only one opinion of what happened or went on during the speech. There were several other eyes and ears in the room that also saw what was going on, and they may also have seen something else during that time the speech was given. And the evaluator doesn't have time in their allotted time to evaluate everything in the speech. They can do it on the written form, but they don't have time to do it during the meeting. And this is where, if you have a round table once in a while, you can see what others thought. And also, we need to emphasize manual speech. In my class, do not allow anybody to sign up for a speech unless it's a manual speech. We even had an instance of this last week where somebody said, I can give a speech on Zoom and tell people how to use it. And right away they said, is this from a manual speech? And they were like, oh, no. Well, then you have a manual or a path that this fits in, and then you can give a speech on that topic. So we have to reinforce giving the manual speeches or the pathway speeches. So there are different types of evaluation methods. Now, we're not going to see all of these in our meetings, but there are different types of evaluations that can occur. So the three types I'm going to talk a bit about today are the tell and sell, the tell and listen, and the problem solving. The tell and sell is the most common, where you discuss what the speech was like and you give some improvements to the speaker. And it's very short in terms of time because we're limited for time when we do our tell and sell. Our tell and listen is when the speaker gets a chance to respond to the evaluation. So the evaluator will comment on one aspect of the speech and the speaker can listen and respond. And this takes a bit longer to do because the speaker is actually responding to what the evaluator is saying. There's also the problem-solving evaluation method, where you take your time to solve the problems that you actually are seeing. Now, this is a bit of the tell and listen, where the evaluator talks and the speaker can reply, and you're both looking at trying to solve the problem, and a discussion actually takes place. Now, this can be risky if you've got a newer person that's doing the speaking, because the newer people may not be as open to feedback as some of the more experienced members. So you have to be cautious when you're helping problem solve, especially with a newer speaker. And also the problem solving method will take a longer time, longer than what we have in a Toastmasters meeting. So you might want to take this offline when you're helping the speaker out. But these are basically the three different types of evaluation methods. Now, when you're an evaluator, you have behaviors that you exhibit. If you're going to be an effective evaluator, you have to show that you care. You have to suit your evaluation to the speaker. So if you have a newer speaker, a whole bunch of points for improvement, you're going to be giving them one thing to work on at a time. You need to learn the speaker's objectives. So that's why it's important to know what the speaker is speaking on ahead of the meeting so that you can focus on what the objectives are for their project. Also, their own personal objectives. If they want to do, for example, better gestures, you need to know that ahead of time so you can also comment on that for them. You have to listen actively. So when the speaker is in front of you, you should be paying attention to what they're doing and not letting your mind wander. And show that you're actively listening by facing and using your body language, facing towards the speaker and using your body language to show them that you're listening. And personalize your language when you're speaking to them. Don't generalize, actually personalize the evaluation. You want to give positive reinforcement. So you're not going to be just listing the things that need for improvement. You're going to be talking about the good things as well. And remember, we use the sandwich method where we give some positive, some points for improvement, and some positive at the end. You also want to build that motivational climate. You want the evaluation to make them feel good and motivate them to go out there and do their job next time around when they're speaking in front of a group. And you want to evaluate the behavior, not the people. Or like I want to think of it as, you evaluate the speech and not the person giving the speech. You want to make sure you're nourishing that self-esteem, again, by providing that motivational climate and giving that positive reinforcement. And also, the number 10 is a really good point. Show the speaker how to improve. It's not just enough to tell somebody that your opening was not that great and move on. Give them suggestions on how to make that opening better. Tell them that maybe if you used a quote, or maybe if you used that story you told us the other day about whatever, at the beginning of the speech, that would have drawn the audience in. Because just telling them that something wasn't done well and not giving them the how they should fix it won't get them to improve, because they just know that they did something wrong, but they won't necessarily know how to fix it. So show the speaker how to improve. Even if it's with body language, you can actually walk the stage or show the gestures to the people as well. So how do we personalize our language when we're giving feedback? We want to say things like, my reaction was, or it appeared to me, or I felt that you, because that shows this is how you felt, this is how you interpreted things when you saw their speech. You don't want to use language that you should have, you failed, your opening was, because the you puts everything onto the speaker, and you don't want to be doing that. You want to show them how you felt during their speech. So using the language my and I will reinforce that to them. And again, when giving suggestions, you can say, I suggest, I think. A technique that I found helpful is, as opposed to you should, you must, and good speakers do it by. Always put it on your opinion and how you found the speech, rather than putting it back onto the speaker. And they'll be more receptive to the feedback that you're actually giving them. And the speakers also has responsibility too. It's not all just on the evaluator. So as a speaker, you have to make sure you communicate your goals to the evaluator. If you want them to be looking at your gestures in addition to everything else in that project, tell them that. Help the evaluator prepare. Give them the form ahead of time. Tell them what your plan is or what the topic is. Let them know what you're going to do so they can prepare. And prepare diligently for yourself, because a well-prepared speech will come across much better and show that you've done the homework, and it will help the evaluator rather than if you hadn't prepared. And some people have heard my story about, I had one person giving a CC, the very first speech, the icebreaker. He didn't pay attention to his mentor. He didn't even bring the book to the meeting. And I asked him, so you're going to be talking about yourself today? That should be interesting. And he said, no, I was going to talk about the Canadian dollar. And you could tell that he totally did not prepare, didn't even bring the manual to the meeting. So make sure that as a speaker, you prepare diligently. Empathize with the evaluator. The evaluator has to look at what is put in front of them. So make sure that you understand what they need and understand where they're coming from as an evaluator. And you also want to help the evaluator improve as well. If you see something that they could improve upon, let them know. And one of the most important things in this whole process is be prepared to change. Because the way you presented the speech, there's always going to be some place for improvement and some place where you can change. And that's the biggest thing, is being acceptive to change. When you hear feedback, it's hard to hear the feedback sometimes, but the feedback that you get from the evaluator will only help you get better. So be prepared to change as a speaker. Now, this is at the point when the meeting where I want our prepared speaker to give their speech, and I'm going to give a little introduction here. So we are going to let Lorette do her speech, and I want each of us to pretend that, or not pretend, but to actually evaluate her speech. And then we're going to have a little bit of a discussion on her speech, how we're evaluating. And we're going to then evaluate the evaluations we had. So I'm going to turn my screen share save off. And I'm going to let Lorette unmute herself while I introduce her. So today our speaker is Lorette Greenley. She's speaking from the Path Effective Coaching. She's doing a level 4 project, Improvement Through Positive Coaching. And she's got a time of 5, 6, and 7 minutes. Are you okay with timing yourself, or you're good? Okay. The title of her speech today is Coaching the President of Birchwood Toastmasters. Please help me welcome Lorette.
Let me just get my timer going here. Madam Toastmaster and fellow Toastmasters and most honorable guests. Leadership comes in many forms. An individual with expertise and a willingness to contribute can make a difference through coaching and mentoring. Coaching and mentoring, though both focus on helping another person, they're both quite different. Coaching is a task-based advising that helps individuals improve, hone, and master their skills. There are coaches everywhere. Athletes have coaches, business people have coaches, public speakers have coaches. So there's a lot of coaches out there. But coaches generally have short-term connection with the person they're coaching. As with mentoring, it takes place over a longer period of time, often years. Mentors provide guidance and advice to proteges accomplish their long-term goals. The relationship between a mentor and a protege is based on steady, sustained growth. Birchwood Toastmasters was in trouble. They hadn't met for 6 months, and I sat down with their president to see how I could help him. So what we did is we sat down and we came up with some goals that he would do to try to get the club going again. And one of the first goals was to register the club with 8 members, minimum 8 members, so that the club would be a club in good standing. He would speak to his HR to get them on board, because I feel in a corporate club, which Birchwood is, you need HR on board to help you. He would hold an executive meeting with whatever members were left and come up with how they were going to resurrect the club. Were they going to have an open house? Were they going to have a membership drive? Was there posters they could put on the outside, maybe encourage people from the outside of Birchwood to come to the meeting? And as soon as the meetings start, to deliver the moments of truth, to see what areas needed to be improved on. And if he was not successful between 2 and 3 months to get HR on board and get the meeting going, he would ask help from the district. And after another 6 months, if nothing improved, then he would close the Toastmasters Club. In a corporate club, you need to have HR on board. They're the ones that can promote Toastmasters. For example, in Birchwood, they have orientation sessions every week. At this session, Toastmasters should be introduced. There should be a section of it that is to talk about Toastmasters, and they should encourage their employees to join Toastmasters. It would help the member, and it would help the organization. Now, in the meantime, the president was trying to get hold of HR, and nothing was happening. But I received a phone call from the district director. The regional advisor was in visiting, and one of his mandates is to visit corporate clubs. Could they visit Birchwood? I contacted the president, he gave me a name, and I gave it back to the district director, and they were able to make an appointment. So the president of Birchwood, the vice president of Birchwood, vice president of education from Birchwood, the district director, the regional advisor, and the program quality director went to Birchwood HR and met with them. It was a very successful meeting. HR was on board to help the Birchwood Toastmaster Club to become an effective club. Once that happened, then I met again with the president of the Birchwood Toastmaster Club, and then we came up with the strategic plan, how we're going to resurrect his club. First of all, we would meet with HR and ask HR to come on board, come to the meetings, become part of the executive. Secondly, how are we going to start? Are we going to start with an open house, a membership contest? We decided we'd do a demo meeting and ask Toastmasters outside of virtual to come in and help with the demo meeting. And we would see to have HR on the executive. We met with HR and they came on board. Two HR came on the executive, became part of the executive, Vice President of Public Relations and Vice President of Membership. And as a coach of the president, and I also coached the Virtual Toastmaster Club, I attended all those meetings. I attended the meetings with HR, I attended all the executive meeting, and of course attended their meetings. They started off with a demo meeting, and with the help of outside Toastmasters, I want to thank Lori William and Katrina Youngers, the two people I can think of right now that helped to start that meeting. Unfortunately, I was not able to go as there was a snowstorm the night before and the roads were terrible. But they were very successful. The club continued to grow until they reached 15 members, at which time they became distinguished and I was able to get my club coach designation. What I did with the Birchwood Toastmaster president was to see what was his strong suit and what did he need to improve on. He was very much on board being a Toastmaster. He totally believed in the program. He really enjoyed having meetings and enjoyed interacting with people, but didn't follow through with HR, didn't follow through with guests. So that was one of the things that we worked on, how he would be communicating with HR continuously, making sure that the two HR came to the executive meeting, came to all the meetings. And that came about. And the last time, I wasn't talking with him very much lately, but the last time he sent me an email, which was just a few weeks ago, he had 21 people come to the meeting. He was ecstatic. He was so happy. Unfortunately, within 5 days, they closed the club because of the coronavirus. And he's been very upset about it since. But I'm hoping that he will continue doing this once the coronavirus episode is finished, and he will build the club up to 21 members. So in conclusion, I coached the president of the Birchwood Club on a single project of getting the Birchwood Toastmasters Club up and running. What I had to decide was what was his strong suit and what did he need to improve on to get this club going. And I believed in Toastmasters and the program, which is what he really believed in also. He needed to get other people involved, and that's what he did. So I feel very confident that going forward, that the Birchwood Toastmasters Club will be an effective club. Madame Toastmaster.
Thank you, Lorette. So now I want to hear from a couple of volunteers. I want you to give us 1 point for improvement and 1 positive point on Lorette's speech. So can we have a volunteer?
I'll volunteer.
Okay, Les, go ahead.
Sure. I love the structure of her speech. She started off saying, identified the problem, what had to be done, and she went through the process of what she did, and then at the end, the resolve. And even then with the coronavirus within 5 days, he was hoping it was going to be fixed. I think we're all hoping that. But one thing I did notice, and especially with these, the video, lots of times when you're speaking, your voice comes after, and it can be a little distracting. And I noticed, but it was kind of difficult, but she kept looking to the right side. I guess that's where her notes are. So it kind of, if she could have had her notes in front of her, because when she went going to the side all the time, I wanted to do the same thing. I thought she wasn't looking at me. So, but overall, I think it was a very nice, very good speech.
Okay, thank you, Les. Who else would like to evaluate Lorette?
I'll go.
Okay, Tekla?
Okay, here we go. Great speech, Lorette. What I thought Lorette had is a strong voice. She emphasized, there are certain aspects of coaching, and she emphasized those points, and I thought she did that really, really well. again, from her speech, the way she arranged her speech, she is a champion coach. Congratulations on that. I have a couple of ways that Lorette can improve. And one is preparedness, meaning learning how to turn on your voice or your video earlier, and the timing device. I know your timing as well. Do it, prepare it before a few minutes early. That would really help. And the looking on the side, I don't think it was the notes. I think she was looking there for inspiration, and I tend to do that. And the way to do it, I realized after doing a couple of these presentations, and I did a speech, that is to take away don't put yourself as a speaker and take away everything, all the other distraction, blank everybody, and this way you can look straight into the video. What I liked about what Lorette did was she spoke in a chronological manner so that I could follow the speech and of coaching a club, and it was so well organized. I loved every portion of her speech. Well done. Congratulations, Lorette. I look forward to listening to your other speeches.
Thank you, Tekla. Okay, so let's move on now to evaluating the evaluators. So Lorette had 2 evaluations of her speech. So let's throw out some evaluation points on the evaluators. So who would like to comment on Les's in terms of what we learned today in evaluations? Was he positive? Did he make it motivational for her want to make another great speech for the next meeting? So let's throw it out there. Who wants to contribute?
I'd like to contribute, Evelyn Burial.
Okay, go ahead, Evelyn.
I liked the evaluation. There were a lot of positive points. There were points for improvement. But what I thought maybe could have been bypassed was that the speech, the words didn't follow the image. I don't think there was anything she could do about that. And I understand that it could be distractive, but how do you compete with technology? Personally, I think that would be a good idea to leave that out, but it was a valid evaluation.
Thank you, Evelyn. I like the way that he used, I love the way he started with the words, I love, and he used it from his point of view rather than throwing it onto the speaker. So I thought the language he used was used very well. Anybody else want to comment on that evaluation?
I'll comment. It's Janet.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
felt that Leslie started positively, but what I liked was he was commenting on the structure of Lorette's speech, and he used structure. He said, and he was specific, so he said that, she identified the problem, the process, solution, outcome, so on. So his was well organized, just as her speech was well organized. And he had the points of suggestion. As someone said, there's some things you can't control, so sometimes no need to mention those. So focus on what the person can change. And I thought it was just a very well organized evaluation.
Thank you, Jeanette. Now let's move on to Tekla's evaluation. Who would like to comment on Tekla's evaluation? In terms of what language did she use? Was she positive, motivating? Who would like to do that?
I could start off.
Sure, go ahead.
Again, she started enthusiastically with a positive statement. Sorry, I didn't take notes on this, so she had positive statements of things that were done well. She had a couple of points of suggestion, and she wrapped it up. So she had an opening, a body, and a closing. So that was effective.
Okay. Any other comments on Tekla's evaluation?
Yes, I do. Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead, Dan.
Okay. One thing I noticed about Tekla's evaluation, and this is something that our club really focuses on, and that's the sandwich method. And I'm not sure if I heard that in this presentation, and what that is opening the evaluation with a positive statement giving the person a grow point, and then finishing with another positive statement so as to lessen the blow. And this is something our club focuses on all the time when we're doing evaluations, and we really push that on our members. I'm not sure if I heard it during this presentation here, but I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Okay, good point, Dan. Okay, did she use the right language? Was she saying the I statements rather than the you statements? I can't see anybody, so you guys will have to comment.
Of course she was. Tekla is a very good evaluator, making sure that she uses the I felt, I saw, I thought, as opposed to you did or you didn't approach. And it makes for a much easier to understand evaluation from the person receiving it point, and they don't feel threatened. So I thought Tekla's evaluation was very successful from that point.
Okay, good.
One of the things I noticed was she ended it with, "I look forward to hearing your next speech." And I think a lot of good evaluators will do that in their evaluations. They will say, "Look forward to hearing to the next one," and positively reinforce that they can come up and speak well again.
Excellent point, Jordy. I agree with that. I think that makes a lot of difference in getting that motivation factor as an evaluator. If you tell them that you're looking forward to seeing and hearing the next speech, that goes a long way for the speaker. So good point. So with that, I'm going to wrap up the workshop portion of the meeting and turn it back over to my sharing screen here. So just bear with me. So how do you change your evaluation behavior? If you're not confident as an evaluator and you want to improve as an evaluator, how do we improve that? Well, the first thing you have to do is decide that you want to change. Change isn't going to happen just for change to happen. You have to decide that you want to make the change and you want to be a better evaluator. And you have to recognize the benefits of change. So if you don't see how changing is going to make things better, then you're not going to want to change. So you have to recognize the change in your evaluations and being a better evaluator. And you can't change unless you put the change into action. So if you learn something from today, I want you to mark it down and put the change into action. So the next time you do a speech evaluation, you actually do what you learned today. And to make it a habit, you have to actually practice it. So you have to recognize that you want to do this change. You have to get it into your evaluations, and you have to repeatedly do it in your evaluations to get that change to happen. So remember to make it a habit. And always remember, Toastmasters, never stop improving. We can always improve. We can always get better at what we do, whether it's evaluations or speaking or leadership or anything that we do in life. We always have to constantly keep improving. So never stop improving. So fellow Toastmasters, let's make our club environments very caring and supportive. Let's work hard to build effective evaluation skills. And let's help one another become the speakers and leaders that we want to be. Mr. Toastmaster.